call women in athletic training. So, our values, and one of the sayings that we say now is "Watt is more than average," and average stands for our core values, which include, authenticity, virtue, empowerment, respect, advocacy, growth, and elevation. And it's just, I mean, Chelsea, do you want to elaborate a little bit more there? Like, you started writing some of this too.
No, for sure. No, we really just sat down and wanted to be intentional about everything that we were doing. And we, at that time, I think we had like 7,800 members, and we really sat down and went big with it. We met at least weekly, with homework heading into each week, and really put all of our brains together. And it was a really cool process to be a part of, just to be kind of like in the room where it happened, and really be able to dig deep and get into values and mission. And like, I think a lot of athletic trainers should be a part of that, no matter what setting they're in. Like, if you really can get down to your why and be purposeful, like, it was awesome. It was a shift, I think, for each of us personally. It was a shift for the group as a whole. And it really like gave us a direction to move into, which was huge. So we're a little bit big on acronyms, because we really, like, you want to try to fit things in. As healthcare, we use a lot of acronyms anyway. So like Megan was saying, we are the Women is More Than Average. And so that gives us all of our values. And for everything that we do, we come back to our values within the group. So authenticity, we're going to speak from a place of value for yourself. We're really big on building each other up and empowering one another and showing up for one another. It's not what is so much more than just a Facebook group. Like, it really is this 9,000 strong network of women that are awesome and athletic trainers and humans and going through all the things. So being authentic in the space is big for us. And then being virtuous. We're not a place for ranting. We're not a place for venting. We're not a place for a negative space. We really want to be that place where we're lifting each other up. We're rising above. We're taking it to the next step. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have struggles. That doesn't mean that people can't come to the space with frustrations and problems that they're dealing with, either in the workplace, out of the workplace, in athletic training or not. But I think a lot of it is realizing the power of the word and how you rephrase something to the group. So I think that's a lot of kind of where we head. Empowerment is probably like our top thing. The empowered women, empowering women is our mission, is our value, is our goal, is our talk, is our walk. And that's huge for us. And I think for all of the board members, and I'll definitely speak for myself instead, is that leading forward, leading with knowing that I am an empowered woman and acknowledging within ourselves. I think a lot of athletic trainers can be very self-deprecating and undervaluing of themselves as well. So when you start to rephrase it as you are an empowered individual, and then you can take that and bring others along with you, I think it changes how you enter a space. For me, it changes how I interact with athletic trainers on the sideline when I meet a visiting AT, or when I'm in a space as a visiting AT, or when I'm in a conversation with someone. It changes how that goes. Respect is very straightforward. We don't really run into issues with that. We don't have trolls. We don't have any of that in our online space, and it's amazing. Advocacy, obviously, we're stepping forward for ATs and women, and anything that we can do to empower a woman in her space, whether it's helping her work through an HR issue, whether it's giving her support and guidance through a clinical case that she's dealing with, or a parent moment, or whatever that thing is that she's dealing with. Like, we're going to be there for that person. And by we, I mean the 9,000 of us in the group, because obviously, like, I'm not going to chime in on every case. I don't have all the knowledge, but amongst the 9,000 of us, there's some amazing knowledge that goes in. Growth, we're always on the move. Like, we want to be big. We want to do big things, and we challenge our members to do the same. And then obviously we want to elevate not only each other, but we want to elevate the profession as well. And we really want to be that kind of that shining light, that empowerment moment. Because if we're empowering each other, then, we'll bring the guys along too. We can do that as well. So I think like the more than average is where we come back to every time.
You mentioned you're at 7,800 members, and you said you really want to go big. So is one of the goals to continue to grow the size? What does that mean?
I mean, I think that's a positive to always grow the size. That means that we're attracting people that want that growth mindset and want to be more than average. But I don't think that's our primary goal. I think if we're going to grow, I think we want to grow in resources, and we want to grow in what we can offer our members. Because the more that we can offer our members, then the more of a actual resource we are for each other to help support and empower each other. And what we believe is if we are able to help create our like we want to create a better space and a better profession overall. But if we individually start to improve ourselves and elevate ourselves to another level of education and standard as an athletic trainer, we will overall elevate the profession into hopefully a better space and better future for whatever is to come for the profession.
And we continuously look into all of our like the admin aspects that Facebook gives us, and it's more so we're looking for how many people are interacting, how many people are reaching out and being there for each other. It's not so like it's awesome to say 9,000 because that's sweet, and I do get a little chip on my shoulder every time I meet a new AT, and the first question is, "Hey, are you in what? Awesome, let me help you. Let me help you be a part of it. Let me help you use this resource because you're missing out on this resource that's available for you." But it's also that, I mean, that first questionnaire that we sent out, I think we had something like 800 responses. Like that's huge for AT and Facebook in general, for that many people to actually want to voice their opinion and have a moment. And then we had not that many, but we had close to that on the latest one that we just sent out. And we have open answers, and people aren't leaving those blank. Like they're giving us their thoughts and opinions and where they want to see WOC go. And we read every one and we listen to every one. So yeah, we want to grow in width, but we're really more focused on growing in depth.
All right, Maren, your mic is muted, so you've been kind of quiet. So what do you have to add so far?
It's basically, it's like Megan said, like, yeah, we want to get many members as possible. Like we want every female athletic trainer in the country, and then we want outside of the country, we want athletic therapists in Canada, we want physiotherapists in Europe, like as big as we can get. Awesome. But the main issue is that we want people to participate, and we want them to pick each other's brains. And like Chelsea said, each one of us doesn't have all the knowledge, but I feel like with 9,000 members, all of us have all the knowledge. So all the knowledge is in WOC. So you just got to ask and you're going to find it. And that's our goal. Like the board members routinely will post questions asking the group, hey, what's this problem? And right away we get 5, 10, 15, 20 responses. And there's like, athletic training is it's such a profession where you keep on learning and you keep on learning and you keep on learning. And like, this is such an amazing way to increase that knowledge, because it's not like you're ever going to have 9,000 coworkers in a job that you can tap into whenever you have a problem. So this is the way that you can learn so much, and we can advocate for each other, and we can help each other with our problems.
All right. So just recently I talked with Alan Parcells. He works at Amazon, and he was saying that that's a great place for, moms who want to be actively involved with their families, just because of the regular hours and that kind of thing. So what does the membership breakdown look like for you? Because I know all three of you work with college sports. I'm obviously in a high school. What does that look like in women in athletic training?
Everything. I mean, even our board makeup, we've got a public safety, we have industrial, we have private high school, we have public high school, we have NAIA, D3, 2D1. I think that's everyone just on the board. And I think am I forgetting someone?
She's and one of our newest members is an NFL spotter for concussions too,
Yes.
which is like the coolest thing ever. So she works at a high school and she works for the NFL.
And we've and we have a little bit of physician practice in there as well. So for one of them, so you know, it's a wide variety within the board, and we try to represent as much as we can, and especially with this past year, trying to cater to athletic trainers, employed or non-employed, and trying to provide resources and trying to, as with networking and career opportunities, that has been, I think, a huge influx within the past year that we've been able to help. And from what it sounds like, and from the feedback that we're getting, is it has been a huge resource for people as they're reaching out for jobs. Obviously, we can't confirm that everyone's getting jobs, but like that has been one of our focuses as and catering to the needs. You know, we're going to have plans and stuff and try to meet our members for what they're looking for, but trying to adjust and pivot, because 2020 and so far for me 2021 has just been a constant pivot. So I don't know about you guys, but you know, I think that's kind of the fun of being a part of the board too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I know when I talked to Katie, I think they just recently had the New Orleans social event, and then you know, they were just talking about doing the Las Vegas one. So just recently I had a conversation. There's a lot of people with depression and suicide, and do you think that COVID has affected, or what have you seen from women in athletic training? What are they needing from that group?
Each other.
Community. Yeah.
We're such a solitary profession. Like, this is a profession where so often you work on your own, but more than many other professions, you need someone to talk to, and you need a resource to tap into, or you just need like a shoulder to cry on or anything. And just providing that, like, this is my first job, and I don't know how many years, where I actually have like coworkers who are also athletic trainers. So there's so many high school athletic trainers, junior college athletic trainers, people working in physicians practice where they're the only athletic trainer. Like, having that kind of network to like tap into for someone who knows what you're going through, especially in COVID, is huge, because a lot of professions are getting uniquely hit by the COVID problem. But like athletic trainer, like, our job description has just like exploded with all the things we have to do. Chelsea had to organize an actual testing site at her university, and they have shifts every week where they're testing and they're processing COVID tests. Like, our jobs have gotten huge and stressful, and now we still have someone to talk to about that, even if we're on our own. Like, we had to go back to work literally being afraid of catching a deadly disease every day and trying to prevent your athletes from catching that same disease.
I think it gives everyone a brave space to come together. I mean, even in organizations where you have a ton of other ATs that you work with, whether it's physician practice or whatnot, you don't always feel like you can ask a question. You know, there's a lot of fear of someone thinking that you are stupid, or that you shouldn't belong there. I think there's a lot of that, and being able to ask that question being able to ask that question is huge, because then you're not afraid of any backlash. You're not afraid of any fallout. You can come present. And when I said earlier, we don't have trolls, like, we don't have that problem. Everyone assumes the best in a scenario. If someone's struggling, they're not like, well, did you do an eval? Of course we did an eval. We're athletic trainers. Like, the basic things are already assumed. And that's huge for ATs. Like, assuming the best in each other and then answering a question in that way is only going to better for our patients, for each other. But like, for COVID, it was the space that we all came to. For a while, we ended up having like COVID brainstorm sessions, like full on Zoom community sessions. And we broke it down by level, by area. And we had all the NA, or as many NAIAs wanted to get on a phone call and hash out how it was going to impact them, or how they were going to go about it, or what they were going to do. Anywhere from like, what are we doing for coolers, or do you even have the staff, to what D1s are doing, how they're going about it. And it was a space where athletic trainers are great at risk management. They're great at foreseeing all the problems coming down the road. So let's all get in a room and solve the problems. And it was awesome. So I think that like the mental health perspective is knowing that you have that group to fall back on. For me, that's absolutely what it is. Like knowing that there are other people on that struggle bus with me. We're all going to be there together. Everything is fine. We're fine. But that you're all in it together. Like there's a huge component to that. Like you're on an island, but all the islands are like attached, which is nice.
You mentioned the group calls for, all the NAI athletic trainers, whatever it is. So do you have to be part of Women in Athletic Training, or is this something that y'all put out like to public for social media, or, through the network, and allowing men and women both to join, that kind of thing?
So we had, that was just for our members. And we said, hey guys, let's put a collection of the minds. We put it on our social media to try to help encourage further discussion so that they can come together with notes. So if you, like for me, I do have male coworkers. We started to brainstorm that session and brought to what we could. And what we would do is, we had one for high school, D1, D2, D3, NAI, and we had such a great turnout of, because we were in charge of creating these policies and procedures that frankly don't exist. And so everyone's starting from scratch, and all of us coming together with already some kind of baseline of notes, or how we're starting this thought process, this blank sheet of paper, and pulling it all together so that we can all create something great that, is catered to each setting and to each, the needs of each athletic training facility. Then that's like something that is huge. And I'm hoping that these women are able to bring that back to their coworkers and to the other, males in the profession, and say, hey, this is what we're creating. This is what we're thinking. Let's bounce some more ideas, because what we discuss is not going to be, there's no cookie cutter in athletic training. There's nothing that's cookie cutter. So trying to help start that conversation, start that baseline, and get that moving to help create, I guess, a better space for everyone as they're walking into the storm that is COVID and athletics mixed together.
But we're also really protective of our space, in terms of, opening it up to public. That's, we're here for women, and we're here for a population that has really struggled to own the space. And yeah, technically we are now the majority in ATA numbers, but I promise you it doesn't feel like that. And especially when you get into the different breakdowns and different levels, you just don't see it when you start getting into leadership roles, when you start getting into pay scales, when you start getting into maternity leave or time off or any of that. Like we're by no means leading the way in that space. And so, I mean, you have to give us your BOC number to join the group. If you're a student, we need to know what school you're at and when you're sitting for your BOC. And we protect that. And I think that's part of what makes the space a place where people can show up wholly and authentically. And I mean, women in general, I know for myself, we struggle a lot with the imposter syndrome. There's been plenty of studies that have come out that if there's a job posting, if a male meets one of the 5 criteria, he's like, yes, I'm in, let's go, I'm applying. And women, we want to meet all 5. And we're like, I still don't know if I have it. I might apply. I should put my name in. And there's just a shift in that. So how can we be there for our members? And it's in the space. It's protecting the authenticity, is protecting that space for our members.
So do y'all have like set, I don't know about breakout rooms is the right word, but like subtopics or subgroups within the women in athletic training? Because just thinking about like there's the minority women in sports medicine or the AT sisterhood, or you know, maybe there's like professional sports women in athletic training, that kind of thing. Do y'all have those different subgroups to help those people connect?
I think they do, and we are more than willing for those members to share that information within our group. But we're really a all for one, one for all. In fact, one of our rules for postings is you can't specifically only ask for a DM. You can't specifically only ask for one piece of information, because if you're asking that question, just like in classes, there's more people that probably have that same question. So we want it all out in a space. And just because I work in D1 doesn't mean that what's happening in high school doesn't affect me. It doesn't mean that I don't have a question that an Amazon person is going to go through, especially if with all of the career shifts that are happening, if you start paying attention to all of the different beats, it makes it a lot easier to jump into a different setting. It makes it a lot easier to start thinking about what that next place is. If I only stay in my D1 bubble, I don't know what else is going on in the AT world, and that doesn't help me as a person, as a practitioner, as an AT. It doesn't help us to disseminate. So we pretty much all just stay in the one zone.
Did y'all have an event planned for Orlando?
I mean, the plan was to have something. I mean, we were looking into it, and then yeah, that was quickly we're shifting, we're pivoting again, and we're trying to provide, because like you mentioned, the mental health aspect of it, you know, everyone wants that community. Like last year, what we ended up doing, it was a wine and canvas night. You know, everyone was it was a rough time, you know, lost a sense of purpose, a lot of stress at work, someone's, you know, whatever it was, we needed to come together, be able to turn off our brains and turn off all the responsibilities that we have going on, because, you know, as athletic trainers, we've got so many things on our docket that we have to get done. Turn those off and be a female for a night and relaxing, drink some wine. And we all painted a Watt logo. I had a friend who was able to kind of instruct us on how to, or, you know, I don't know if you, but I'm not really the most creative. So I needed every little, how do I draw the circle, kind of thing. You know, it's little things like that where it makes you feel human again a little bit. And I think that's what we need to, we're trying to, you know, remind our members, is that we're more than an athletic trainer. You know, we identify so much because our job consumes us so much. And so I think when we are doing projects and we're making plans, we're trying to incorporate that as well, to remind our members that, you know, this is obviously a very huge aspect of our identities, but let's not lose ourselves and like who we are to our core, to this, because, you know, as you get older, things are going to evolve and things are going to change. And like, priority is going to shift, and that's okay. And so I think that this upcoming, you know, NATA, we're going to figure out another kind of social, but virtually again. So hopefully we'll be able to reach out again, get as many members as possible involved.
You know what? Virtual was awesome. Like it is, as a parent, as someone in a staff that you only get, like, there's that rotation, you know, of who gets to go win, and budgets are extremely short, let alone when you add COVID on top of it and they're non-existent, or you know, even if we had an ATA last year, no one would have been able to go because no one was allowed to leave campus for anything. Mm-hmm. So, and it wasn't just like athletic training wise, like professors and faculty weren't allowed to go to any of those. So having things virtual allows people to be there, allows parents to be there. I can't take a week and a half off and go and do all the athletic training things that I want to do. Now, granted, I'm on a road trip for a week and a half, but that took a lot to pull together. Like my team, I'm in a hotel room right now, and to be able to travel with my team, I had to pull out all the stops, and I can do that for my job because I have to, but doing that to be able to be present at NATA or any of the regional conferences or even state, like that takes a lot. So honestly, as someone who has always wanted to go to NATA every year and definitely can't afford it, can't take the time, can't be there, or like your sport is at the exact same time and there's no way you can just bounce for a week. I love the virtual setting. And I loved, like, our social last year was sweet because it was almost dead silent the whole time, but it was because everybody was like owning it. Like they were turning off their brain for an hour. And in the middle of June or July, whatever month that was, I don't even know what month we're in right now. technically we're in March, but like no one knows what day it is. Everyone came in and just kind of like took off the stress and put it off to the side and like got to hang and chill and giggle or drink wine and paint and kind of just take off all of that, which you don't necessarily get to do at an ATA in person either. I mean, you kind of stay in your little groups that you know people of, or you might meet someone else. But I love the virtual setting, and I hope that more conferences offer both as we move forward, as we move out of COVID, as we continue to evolve as a profession. We need to be offering hybrid. We need to be making that an option for athletic trainers, because we don't shut down. We don't have baking hours. We don't have days off most of the time. So asking a ton of people to all be in the same place, who's covering for those people, especially when we're in single athletic trainer zones. So I like virtual. I'm excited for what we can come up with for our members, hopefully a multi-night option, so that those that weren't available on Wednesday will have an option on Thursday or Saturday or what day. But we'll be all right. We'll pivot, like Megan said.
All right, so we've talked a lot about what y'all have done, how y'all have been shifting the culture there. And it's just interesting how you say that everyone feels like they have a voice. So with 9,000 members on social media, that's really a pretty good accomplishment if everyone feels like they have a voice there. I know in the secondary schools athletic trainer Facebook group, there's some of that stuff that we mentioned where people are like, oh, well, you're an idiot. Why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you do an evaluation? Yes, I did the evaluation. That's why I'm asking you this additional question. What other ideas you have? All right. So what is the future looking like? What is coming up in the near future for women in athletic training? We just talked about, the virtual event, possibly for the Orlando NATA, but what else is beyond this year?
I think it's going to be constantly evolving because like that's where the life that we live in. But I think so, like we mentioned before, the end of the year survey that we do, but at the end of every year, each board member, we do a passion planner roadmap where it's like a brainstorm session everyone does individually. And I really love passion planners. So like, don't get me too in depth. Don't ask too many questions because I'll go on and rant. But what it does is it breaks down 5 minutes, unlimited opportunities and unlimited possibilities of your 3-month, your 1 year, your 3-year, and your lifetime goals. And we do this specifically for women in athletic training, and we try to combine the needs that the members are requesting from us and what we see is some priorities in some of these what we call like passion projects, and combine them and try to evolve into what's next and how to plan. And we plan out kind of quarterly for each event and things, or at least to kind of get a rough idea and then nail down the finite specifics at our weekly or bi-weekly meetings on Sunday nights. And like for instance, like NATM, what this month we really want to focus on, the emerging settings. Everyone thinks of an athletic trainer as that person who, is on the sideline of athletics, which I'm guilty because that is my setting and I love it. But I'm not as educated. I don't think, at least when I went through school, it was touched on, but I didn't know much about the emerging settings. So what we're planning on doing is we're having established women within those settings, in those emerging fields, come and talk to our members, especially the younger ones who know that to help shine some light, knowing that is an option moving forward. You don't have to be on the sideline to be an athletic trainer. You can be working in so many other things and really kind of getting some insight. And it's kind of like a casual conversation and getting to know these people, which is more of like a networking at the same time, as well as like an educational thing. And then also in the middle, like later on in the month, we're going to be talking with a professor who specializes in negotiation tactics. So, right now we have so many members and athletic trainers who unfortunately have lost their jobs or searching for new jobs because they came, like, there's a come to Jesus light, like, this is not for me. like that's what I think 2020 and the pandemic has caused. It's a lot of internal revitalization and saying, let's time to pivot, like everything else in life right now. And so I think that the bringing light to the emerging settings and potentially giving them the tools for negotiation tactics will help set them up for success, and hopefully keep them within the profession, because it's very known that once women start the family life, the family balance, or family work-life balance, man, I can't even talk today, the work-life balance and trying to balance a family on that, like, there's a lot of people, we lose a lot of amazing, intelligent women because they feel like that's unattainable, and that's sad, and we don't want that. So trying to shine light on all of the other opportunities out there that are not the sideline, I think, is something that are one of our immediate goals for this month.
And I think long term, like, I think the two quotes and phrases that come to mind are the more serious is from RBG, that women belong where decisions are being made. And we're going to do everything in our capacity to make that happen. That's as small as becoming an official CEU provider, and as big as having our own conference. That's absolutely in our goals. We want to sponsor panels at all other conferences, and not just panels for women, but teaching and empowering our male colleagues and our male leaders to show up for your women, be advocates for your women. I know for me in my space, the biggest thing that my director of sports medicine has ever done for any of the women in our space is make it a space that empowers us and encourages us and allows us to have our family around when it's necessary. School day is canceled, and he knows that parents, that's my first role as a parent. So if we have a day and now there's no school, either you can have no athletic trainer, or we can find an area that encourages that life work balance, that allows you to come in later and only worry about what you have to worry about. Or if you can take the day off, there's no guilt. There's no, oh, of course it's a parent thing again. Like, no, go home, be with your parent, go do what you need to do. Or for even our young professionals, you had a really, really long, rough day yesterday. Take today off, stay home. That's okay. Like, go to that wedding, go to that place, empower those things, so that we're not trying to decide between having a life and being an athletic trainer. It should just be kind of the all-encompassing thing. So I think that, like, that's what we want to do, and we're gonna take we have to do the quarterly steps to get there, right? Like, you can't just cannonball in the deep end and hope it's gonna happen. Like, you have to have the steps to build that. But like, I'm a little bit of a nerd anyway. So like in Hercules, where they're like, indoor plumbing, it's gonna be big. That's what we're gonna be. Like, we're gonna be big. Like, we're gonna do big things. I know, I'm a dork. It's fine. I own it, Marin. It's fine. But like, that's what we want to do. Like, we want to encourage people to show up for each other, women to show up for women, men to show up for women, and women to show up for men. Because when you show up for me, oh, I'm going to show up for you. You start making it more difficult for me, I'm looking for a way out. I'm looking for a better opportunity for someone who wants me to be there, who encourages me to be me in my space.
So I got two things. Just this weekend, my wife's sister and her husband, they had a baby. And I was like, whenever my first son was born, he was born on Friday, I went back to work on Monday. Because nobody told me anything different. Nobody told me everything that was going to happen. Nobody told me about all the tiredness, the needs. And so I always say, hey, if you can take a month off, then do it. If you can take a half a day every day for a month, then do it. You can never get that time back. And then, I tell the story. My wife was sitting 10 feet from me. I was washing dishes so that she didn't have to. She was nursing our son, and she was mad because I wasn't just sitting there with her in her misery, because at the time she didn't know what she was doing. There's a lot going on when you first have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it because nobody told me. And so I love that you're saying, hey, take that day off. Hey, take that time, because you can't ever get that back. You can't ever get that back. And I know my regrets, but I can only imagine what it is with all of that connection and emotional and hormonal stuff that was going on with my wife. Like, I don't think I'll fully ever understand that. And so, again, I'd love to encourage new parents to plan appropriately. Make sure you take that time off. I know that's one of the things that you guys are working on, is making sure there's maternity leave, or there was some other term you have on there in the show notes, but we'll get to that in a minute. So definitely continue to encourage people to do that. And then the other thing was, so my coworker, Sophia, she's a female. One of the new coaches here said something about, oh, well, if I have a problem, I'll just come to you. Okay. So what I said was, well, we're both athletic trainers. She's actually certified. I'm not. She's really good at her job. So you're just gonna have to come to both of us. So in that scenario, how can I empower her and support her? What could I have done differently? Maybe said better in those situations.
I think reassuring, because it commonly, and it kind of is what it is what it is. We're trying to change that norm, but right now is we have these male coaches who they're going to come talk to the male athletic trainer 90% of the time until they feel like they can, because unfortunately, I mean, I worked football in undergrad, and they're like, do you even know what's going on? I'm like, funny it is, because I do, like, thanks. But you know, it's because I'm a female, and you know, encouraging and educating, like encouraging these male coaches that these doesn't matter their gender or what they identify as. They are good at their job. They're certified. They know what's going on, and they may not know every play in the book, but when an injury goes down, they will know what to do and how to handle it, and your athletes are in good hands. And just reassuring them and making sure that I mean, will they ever feel comfortable? Sometimes you're never gonna they're never going to feel comfortable sometimes, and they're going to continue to resist. And I encourage and I urge you to continue to push back and say, no, you know, we are both here, and you're not going to get me full time. You're going to have to talk to her, that she is capable, and allow her to do her job. Give her the opportunity to do her job. And it sounds real stubborn, but it's like sometimes the coaches are just as stubborn and trying to adjust to change.
I think it's also the words matter. Words matter a lot. So not just the words that you came back at immediately, and not just the words that you had later on. You're like, hey, so-and-so stopped me today. He might be checking in with you. But it's the day-to-day words matter. And when you start being part of conversations in terms of safe zone training and those kind of things, you can say that you're going to be an advocate, but unless you show up daily, it doesn't matter. It doesn't take a whole lot for me to know that you're just trying to talk the talk and not walk the walk. So I think that's the biggest thing. When we look for advocates, when we look for those spaces that are truly showing up for their people, they're showing up on a daily basis. That they're not assigning sports based on gender. They're not assigning, days off based on this. They're constantly having those conversations. They're not saying, degrading or demeaning jokes. They're not, it's the little things, but it's the little things that you start paying attention to. And then I think there's going to be a shift. Most of the coaches, or most of the elder people that are in the athletic training realm, both in and outside of the profession, they're eventually going to move on. And they weren't around a lot of women athletic trainers in a space that wanted them to be there. I mean, I'm about to leave my young professional title And at my very first NATA, I got to sit down for coffee with a green jacket and told him that I wanted to work football someday. And he stared me straight in the face and said, "I don't believe women should do men's sports." And that was a Hall of Famer talking to a brand new grad saying, "No, you need to change your dream." That sucked. And I challenged that right back because I was a bold, brave, newly graduated kid, right? And said no, like, and his example at the time was what happens when they take a shot. And I was like, I'm not evaluating that on a female nor a male. They know their anatomy better than me, so it doesn't really matter. Everything else I am fully capable of. How dare you exclude me from that space? And the more those conversations, or those challenging things are happening, that's when it matters. So that was only 12 years ago that conversation took place, and those are still happening. Believe, like, there are still people in our profession in very high roles, in not even just in leadership roles, but that have been there for years and years and years, and I've been around the coaches, and that mentality, that'll shift, but it's gonna take a bit. So more advocacy, just like you did. That it was just a quick conversation, but on the grand scheme, if everyone starts having those quick conversations, like, that changes things big time.
I know one of the things, like this football season, I was outside most of the time, and Sophia was inside most of the time. And so one of the coaches would say, "Hey, what's up with so-and-so?" I was like, "I don't know. Sophia's been doing most of the rehab. You'll need to check with her." And so for me, that's kind of like, I don't know all of it. Ask the one who does, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's another way that I can continue to say, "Hey, you got to trust her. Hey, she knows what she's doing." Or, we'll have a varsity football game and a varsity volleyball game. And so essentially we split. I think there was 4 that overlapped or whatever it is, conflicted. And so she went to 2 of the varsity football games without me, and I went to 2 of the varsity football games without her. And again, that's another way that we're all working all of the sports. And again, just building up that trust, making sure she's comfortable without like overburdening, but making sure that everybody knows that she is perfectly capable of doing that job.
Again, there is one tiny thing that people miss out when they're saying hi to a visiting AT that we hear a lot in the group is, don't assume that the visiting AT is the biggest or tallest or male walking forward. Because a vast majority of the time, from what we're hearing, it's the female athletic trainer walking up to introduce herself with her 2 male students, and they get approached when the handshake and the, "Hey, I'm this person," and it's just assumed that the female is the student. Like, it's a little moment, but it changes the entire landscape of the rest of the game. You already undermined her role. You already took away from her authority. You already showed her that she didn't have value on the field in that moment. So, like, not assuming anything.
That's a good one. And I had talked to probably a year or 2 ago, Dr. Angie Curtis. She's a black doctor, sports medicine doctor. And that was one of the things she said. She went as the doctor, into the patient's room with I think it was like the server or the like the resident, I don't know, somebody wearing like the janitor or something like that. And they said, "Oh, well, that guy's the doctor." Like, good night. She's here wearing her stethoscope and, doctor's coat. And I don't know. I don't know, because I don't ever get that. So, all right. What do you feel like are the 2 big issues that I can help women with, that you guys are working to improve?
Oh, that's a good one. 2 things. I think one of them would have to be the education element of one. Part of it is we are healthcare. I mean, that's our thing. I think that's our theme for this month, obviously for National Athletic Training Month, but that women working male sports are, again, we kind of just touched on it a bit, are just as capable, just as knowledgeable, just as much of a person in the room as their male counterparts or their the coaches. They are big decision makers, and they are capable of being big decision makers. And you know, again, I think we kind of briefly touched on this, but like just working on becoming that daily advocate for women as big decision makers is really just one huge step in helping in that involvement of the profession and involvement of women within the profession, and the future of what the profession will potentially come into. Second one. You guys have a second one?
All right, well, what do you think? Or we can come back to that later. But you worked in professional sports, and so that's kind of one of the things that they've mentioned a couple of times is women in professional sports. Or Chelsea said that she was basically denied the opportunity to work in professional sports. Talk to your role, your understanding, your experiences in that just a little bit.
So it's crazy because soccer is a lot different from most professional sports in the US. I mean, it's the biggest professional sport in the world, but like in England, when physiotherapy, which is their version of athletic training, started out, only women were allowed in the programs. Like they only had the restroom facilities and like the locker facilities. They're like, nope, only women. So we're like, there's a different perception of female physiotherapists overseas, which is what I have a lot of exposure to. And even in the US, like I worked for a little bit as a PRN for a USL team, which is like the second level below MLS. And they flat out told me the head coach wanted a female athletic trainer with a team. And it's crazy because the way that the athletes see it is like, I don't want to say it's a homophobia, but they would rather be touched by a woman. And it's not like in a sexual way or anything like that. They're more comfortable with being handled by a female. And I think this goes along the same lines of, my husband said that when he was in the military, like the female medics, like you just felt so much more taken care of because of more of our tendency to be more nurturing. And it's just the way we are. So is there that many female athletic trainers in professional soccer in the US? No, there's some, but just like all the other professional sports, there's not a huge amount. But I think we actually have a decent amount of leg up on the other sports because it's already been normalized. I mean, Chelsea Football Club, one of the biggest clubs in the world, they had a head physiotherapist years ago. And so it can be a better environment. It really can be. We still have the challenges. When I worked in Philadelphia, we were hiring another athletic trainer to work with me at the academy. And a female staff member said, well, shouldn't we hire a male so that there can be one of each? And I looked at her and I was like, I'm just going to hire the one who's most qualified. And it was a female, that's just how it happens. So it's coming from all sides, but especially in soccer, I think that those hurdles have already been overcome. And so there's still challenges 100%. I mean, that physiotherapist at Chelsea Football Club ended up getting blamed for something by a coach who I'm not a really big fan of. And she ended up getting bumped all the way down the organization because she ran out onto the field because of an athlete faking an injury, and she got blamed for it. Do I think that would have happened to a male? It's debatable, but culturally, some cultures tend to blame women more than other men. And that culture just happened to be one of those, So what was it? This year's Super Bowl, there was 4 females on the sidelines, like one athletic trainer on each side, one assistant coach on each side. I mean, that's NFL. The Dodgers had a head female athletic trainer for a while now. Like, how many years has it been now? So we're getting there. We're still in the minority, but I think once those barriers are broken, like it's only going to go up from here.
I think the second part to your what are the two things is being able to teach boundaries, being able to teach boundaries of how you treat people, being able to allow for boundaries in that work-life balance. Women are going to take things home. We sit with it all night, all day. We're constantly thinking about it. We want the best for our patients all the time. My husband knows I don't have an off switch. Like it's not a thing. I'm constantly thinking about, oh yeah, I could have done that with this, or like, did I like that interaction, or what can I do next week, or we have this coming up. There's just that that empathy piece that we have built into us, and acknowledging that and helping to curtail that to support the woman in the room, to say, hey, no, like here we turn phones off at 10. I don't care whether your coach texts you at 11. I don't care whether they text you at 2 a.m. You're not going to answer. And if they start complaining about that, they can answer to me and I will shut that down immediately. Having their back when those confrontations happen, when someone is putting their foot down and saying, no, this is what's happening, whether it's a COVID test, whether it's holding a kid out, whether it's just a simple thing as whether or not we're going to change this for this, 24-hour notice on practice and schedule changes. That goes a long way when a director says, nope, sorry, our athletic training staff will not be covering that. You can come out to us, we'll be on call. We don't do that here. We're going to set boundaries. If you start setting boundaries for athletic trainers, and women are going to be hugely impacted. Like that to me would be everything. To be able to give boundaries to my young professionals, to be able to give boundaries to everyone, not just on the constant thing that we have with us all the time that we have to shut off when we're on a podcast because they're gonna blow up my phone. I put it on do not disturb because I know it's gonna be blown up. So being able to support that with our women athletic trainers, regardless of age, regardless of setting, I think that's huge because we're going to take it with us. We constantly are referring to, and for better or for worse, that there are kids. I have 2 children at my house that they're under the age of 6 that I gave birth to, and then I have 21 student athletes that look up to me and walk in for everything. Over the course of my years, I've had kids come to me of both genders, of pregnancy concerns, of severe mental health issues, of parents and grandparents being diagnosed with terrible things. Even just in moments of like, I just need to sit in your office for a minute. I just need to talk this through, or like, I'm going through this, or I'm going through that. They're going to come to us and have those conversations. And that's what we're here for. Like that's that motherly piece that's built into us. Not that males can't do that, but it's ingrained into our souls. And being able to help our profession harness that energy, but also like limit it to a work-life balance model would be tremendous.
I see on social media athletic trainers talking about, I couldn't sleep because I was thinking about my student athletes or the injury, or like we'll have conversations. Even my wife last night was upset about something. I'm like, well, for me it's just like, I'll just wait and see what happens, kind of thing, and it's not that heavy emotional burden that I'm bearing. It's just kind of like, but also that's kind of me. I would say I'm not very like emotional or empathetic, and she would probably say the same. But it's just for me, I've never really felt like this huge burden for the athletes that got injured. It's like, all right, well, it is what it is, So I have trouble understanding that. So tell me a little bit more. If Sophia has that going on, obviously I can ask her how I can support her, but if other people's Sophia, their coworker, their female coworker, what are some of the ways that I can have those conversations or things that I can ask that will help support that? And I know you said, with the athletic director saying, hey, this practices won't change, those kind of things, but specifically that situation of that emotional burden, how can I help support that?
Listen. I think listening is huge. I think when they're coming to you with a question about an injury, it's not, most of the time it's because they just need that, yeah, you're on it. That's exactly what I would do. that makes perfect sense. Or they need like, ooh, have you thought about that one thing? And then they're able to move forward with it. So like, I think it's just like listening, understanding that it's okay that you don't have to empathize to the level that I do, but I do empathize to that level.
Yep. Exactly what I would have said.
Yeah. I mean, because like there's no way you're going to be able to change that internal grain of us that do bring that home, but being that support system, knowing that, I guess further in a way, further validating their role within the athletic department, within the athletic training field, and listening as they, sometimes it is like a coping mechanism to kind of get through and push it out. So it no longer is so much of a burden, but it is there. Just that active listening it can move mountains.
And thank yous.
Yeah.
As a profession, we're terrible with that. We don't get thank yous. We're hardly ever in team photos. Like, we don't do it for the spotlight, but that doesn't mean that we don't deserve all the accolades that come with that spotlight that we helped achieve. Mm-hmm. So when you see them go the extra mile, or just when you see them have a hard day, like, hey, you're awesome, keep doing it. Like, it doesn't have to be something fake. We're not looking for the toxic positivity of like rah this, like, that's fake. But like, just showing up and being like, hey, I appreciate you and what you are doing, and like just keep doing what you're doing, you're awesome. Like that sits with you for years. Like, just little things, like it shouldn't. That's not good, but like it does. Like you want that. You want that, like, hey, you kicked ass today. Like, way to get that kid back. Like, that was a challenge. I don't know how you managed that in 24 hours, but like, that's awesome. Do it again. Like, just being there for each other in that way. Like, with our board, we do that for each other, and it's like, that's part of the reason why our board has become such a tribe, is that we don't have that, like that toxic positivity. We have that authentic moment, and we'll call each other out for random stuff, like when I go on squirrel tangents, but we also acknowledge like the big deals. Like, you just got that kid back. They could have been out for weeks with that. Like, that's awesome. Or like, you were able to advocate and get them into a doc that fast. Holy cow. Like, that's awesome. Like, the little things that we might take for granted as ATs, like, you're still working your butt off. You're still doing the things. And women, we want a little bit of thank you. We want a little bit of that affirmation, that positive affirmation. Those are huge. Like, just acknowledgement is huge.
All right. So what I think I want to do is actually have you practice that. So with you three, I want you to give each other an acknowledgement, just something, obviously it needs to be personal, but I mean, it needs to be personal, but also needs to be publicly shareable, because this is live stream. So while you got a second, I'm gonna talk. Just the other day, my wife was like, "Hey, Jeremy, if you like one of these meals that I'm cooking, can you tell me? Because when I cook for the kids, they almost never like it, and I put thought and effort into these meals. Can you just tell me?" And it goes right along with what you're saying, is just give you that little thank you. Just say thank you. And so it is important in all of those things. And yes, my wife stays at home with our kids, which I'm not sure if it's any easier or harder than being an athletic trainer. So yeah, we have 3 bio kids and then a foster daughter. And so there's a lot going on with all that.
Oh, your wife is such a bigger rock star than you are.
Yeah.
She's doing that.
Yeah.
She would.
She can have her own broadcast, and she would just like blow it up. She's tremendous. Like, definitely go home and do big things for her. Even, you know what though? And the big thing doesn't have to be like bringing home flowers. Big thing is like cleaning the bathroom. Big things are like making sure, like, hey, I will always take care of dishes. I never want you to clean up after dinner. I'm gonna own that. Like, just little things like that. Like, that's one thing that my husband and I worked out, like, with both of our schedules and our kids and things being hectic, is like, I hate dishes. I hate them. I loathe them. I don't want to do them ever. And he's totally good with it. So like, that's one little piece that like, I can destroy the kitchen, or I can bake my head off and be fine. And he's like, I got this. And I appreciate that. And that's him showing up for me in that way. Like, he's like you. He's not an empathetic guy. He's much more action than words. But like, when his actions are that, they speak. They say a lot. But your wife is awesome.
I think so too. All right, who wants to start?
I can start.
All right.
And do you want one for each or one just for one of them? I don't know. I mean,
that's up to you.
All right. I got this. All right. Marin, you are an awesome mom. You're killing it. I know it feels like it's hard sometimes. And you have run your athletic department of like 400 athletes. I might be slightly off, by yourself for the past 6 months. And if you can't do anything else, that is a milestone or a mountain that like not many people can say that they've done on their own. And that should be an achievement. Give yourself a pat on the back, because like if you can make it through that, you can make it through anything else that your career is going to throw at you. And then Chelsea, you are one of the most, so Chelsea is in charge of all of our canvas and our creative. She is by far the most, like her mind just, I don't know if I could ever like get into her mind, because it goes everywhere. It is one of the most creative and one of the most passionate people I've ever met. And when she puts her mind to it, she's going to throw herself all in. You are also a great mother. So growing up into the profession, like not too many, I never had many athletic trainers that were mothers that could show me that you can do both. And you are one of those who have shown me that you can be an AT and you can be a mom at the same time. And that is something that like is, again, not super common, but we're going to create a new norm, hopefully. And you are in that process of creating that new norm, and you're being an awesome mom, even though you have to be gone for a week for your kids. I know that's like slightly like a high and a low for you, because like, you know, I don't have kids, but like, I'm sure it's kind of nice to get away every now and again, but, but you know, like keep doing it, keep doing great things. And, you know, both of you are making waves and have bright futures.
Jeremy, you gave us a challenge here, pal. I don't like compliments. And I crave them at the same time. And I think a lot of women are that way. We need the affirmation, but at the same time, we're like, don't look at me. I can't do it.
I think it was on Ellen. Shia LaBeouf came out and he was like, he comes out clapping. He's like, I always do this because it's always nervous, like when people are like cheering for you. So he's like clapping so that you're not having that nervousness. Like, I'm just sitting here taking a compliment.
Right.
There you go. You gotta adopt that.
Yeah.
Clapping for myself. All right, Chelsea, go ahead.
All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna go the easy route first. Jeremy, I appreciate you for having us on. This is something that we absolutely had on our list of goals. It's something that it's part of the steps of being in the room where it happens and being in a national presence is having conversations in bigger spaces and having conversations with males and having conversations with males that are listening. So I appreciate just the invite to come back and check back in on us. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Marin, you are absolutely the most like honest and passionate about athletic training person I know. The turmoil and the path that you have been down to get where you are, I would not have been able to get through. I would have ducked out of the profession long ago. And every time that you're given the chance to bail on it, you lean in harder and you want it more. And that makes me want to lean in harder and want it more. And you show up for anyone that will show up for you. So you challenged me to show up for you. You challenged me to show up for my athletes and to be brutally honest. And I very much need that, and I appreciate you. See, she doesn't like getting compliments. I don't like it either. None of us, all of us are extremely uncomfortable in this moment. Of all of the questions you've asked, this is the most uncomfortable of all of them. But I love but on the altar side, I love giving the compliments. Like, this is easy. Yep. This is the easiest question you've asked by far. But it's also on the receiving end, the worst one you've asked by far. And Megan, like, thank God that we ended up in the same sport, in the same conference, on the same court 5 years ago. And that, like, you're basically my sister at this point. We've been through so much highs and lows professionally and been able to be there and show up personally. The way that you lead the board, no one else could do that. No one else could could stay as passionate and wrangle in all of the different voices and not get frustrated with it and not get overwhelmed by it. And like, we just add it in, like, no big deal. I'll just do it on top of my MBA, on top of my other job, on top of the other things I'm doing. By the way, she also bakes. Like, she has her own Instagram for baking. And I'm not talking like, here are some cupcakes. I'm talking like she should be on the Great British Baking Show, because she is that, like, I need to live closer so that I can actually enjoy the things that she posts. So like, you do all the things, and you do it with grace, and you do it with ease, and we're better for it.
Papa.
Right. Again, in the receiving, and this is like,
It's like kind of itchy almost.
yeah,
I know.
exactly.
I want to be like off the screen. Like, I'll just be over here, and you can look at my background, and yeah.
Yeah, at least you didn't have to go last like me. These two girls are verbose when it comes to this stuff, and
You just use the word verbose, so I think you're fine.
fair. That's like a self-fulfilling descriptor, because now that's what I hope to be. All right, I'll start with Chelsea. Chelsea and I actually met when I was like put onto the board, and then all of a sudden we exchanged addresses, all the board, and we found out that we were living in the same town. We're like, oh, that's cool. And then we didn't meet until the pandemic, when I brought her a cake. But
And then I had her over to hang out for a swing set moment. Like, it was
socially distanced. Yeah.
Yes, we were socially distanced.
While she yelled at her 5-year-old to stay away from my 1-year-old because you didn't understand.
We just wanted to share in the love.
Yeah. Chelsea is the first female athletic trainer that I've seen in my career who was able to do everything. Like, until I saw this girl, it was always part-time with kids or full-time and single. Obviously that's not like 100% the rule or anything, but like, the fact that this woman can have 2 small children, a Division I athletic training job, and she, like, literally that department would fall apart if she wasn't there, and they probably are as we speak, because she's in Alabama. Like, and it's not, I'm not trying to knock on them. That's how incredible she is at keeping everything organized, at just single-handedly making sure everything gets done. Before COVID and even during COVID, I'm pretty sure she's like a vampire and she only sleeps like 1 hour a night, because I don't understand how someone can get that much done in that amount of time and be such an incredible parent. Like, she's pretty much my hero. Like, I go home and I watch TV with my husband at night. Chelsea goes home and she like does more stuff and then eventually goes to bed.
I mean, like, even just last night we had a Zoom call, like a Zoom board meeting, and we stayed on a little bit later to work on this. I became a zombie, which means we had to like shut it down because like I was falling asleep in the meeting. Chelsea probably stayed up for an extra 2 to 3 hours, worked on some Zoom backgrounds and like some graphics for NATM, and again,
we woke up to her messages in the group chat.
Yeah, exactly. She was awake when we were this morning, and she had a bunch of messages in our group chat of like, all right, who's ready?
She's amazing. She really is amazing. And she's my soul sister, because we're both from Colorado, but we live in Iowa, which is a whole other can of worms. But she's amazing. Now, Megan is this incredibly high level volleyball athletic trainer at a D1 level as well. The questions that she asks the group in injuries, I wouldn't even know that was a question. And like the clinical knowledge that she has from her experience, like her athletes get such amazing care from her and so much attention. And I believe you got like an after hours text the other night of one of the athletes just like text messaging you when she wasn't even supposed to, thanking you for everything that you do. Like, she's the epitome of the athletic trainer who's so incredibly appreciated by her athletes, but not enough by everybody else. And she also does a lot to keep her program together. So these two. I'm actually glad that I got to go last because like you guys are just
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. You ran your whole department by yourself.
Yes.
Come on.
It's you know, whatever. It's whatever.
Yeah. See, we can't take compliments. We can't do it. It's not a thing.
So like in our weekly or bi-weekly meetings at the very end, we go through each other's highs and lows to then, you know, champion each other through the highs and lows to help get each other through, because again, we've kind of created our own little mini tribe in a support system, because again, we're more than ATs and there's more going on in our lives than just athletic training, and those need to be recognized almost just as much as our goods and bads within our work lives.
Yeah, and I will say that like in general, I think women, especially around sports, who have grown up around sports, shy away from other women and friendships. I thought the idea of having a women's tribe was complete bogus. Like, that's not a thing. People don't actually hang out. Like, unless you're in a sorority, then fine. And then I joined this board, and like my world flipped. And so I think we're really like trying to build that into WOT and show that there is this genuine beat of women that are here for each other, that help shine the light on each other instead of pulling the light away. I mean, one of the quotes we first started off with was, you don't have to dim someone else's light for you to shine. In fact, they can all shine brighter if we all shine together. So like being able to actually like understand and value women friendships and being able to show up for each other and hold each other to higher levels and do that, like that's what we want for WOT. That's what WOT's been for each of us.
This is awesome. I appreciate the genuine appreciation for each other, the example that you're setting, the wisdom and advice you've given me. So again, March 8th, 2021 is International Women's Day, and I think it's always March 8th. I think it's always March 8th, whichever year is International Women's Day. And again, today is March 1st, which celebrates National Athletic Training Month at the start of. And as an athletic trainer, hopefully you are celebrating that, but also hopefully you're celebrating and empowering the women around you, just like I've done with Sophia, you know, and when we hired somebody new, we wanted an athletic trainer, a female, so that, well, obviously we wanted the best person, so we didn't discriminate, but we wanted a female so that the athletes would have somebody to relate to rather than two old white guys, right? And and there's a definite difference with Sophia versus me, and I'm so glad that we've had her, and you know, my wife and I have had lots of conversations about just how much I enjoy working with her, and the kids enjoy her as well. So there really is a place for women in athletic training, and if you don't know where that is, if you don't know how to find that, then join the group Women in Athletic Training. It's on Facebook. If you just Google or Facebook search Women in Athletic Training, it'll be easy enough to find there. It'll have the symbol that they've shown. I think, no, not all three of them, but Chelsea and Megan have it on their thing here. It's also on the graphic, but it's really impossible to miss. It's the Women in Athletic Training, and check that out. So, Chelsea, what's going to be the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Me or Women in Athletic Training?
So if someone wants to contact you, so we have the Women in Athletic Training, and also I know one of you put the Women in AT email, so we'll get to that in just a second. Yeah,
my personal email, or Facebook or Twitter, or apparently I'm on Instagram now. I joined this year so that Megan could join Twitter, because I told her that the AT Twitter world is blowing up. So it's good to keep a beat on that. Yeah, I have a personal email I can shoot to you, so you can add to that too. That's probably easier than my work email.
All right, so I'll have that in the show notes. So Megan, best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to get hold of me is through reaching out, emailing me. My personal email, megsmith768@gmail.com. Always, I have it as an IT, always checking my email, because you never know when things are going to change. So yeah, reach out. I mean, I'm on social media. I just figured out Twitter. I don't really know how to use it still. I'm 30 years old and I'm still learning. But I'm on Instagram and Facebook. If you're within the group, you'll be able to find me easily within that. But always feel free to reach out. We're here as a resource.
And Maren?
Email, definitely. I don't even have a Twitter anymore, and I'm an old lady who's only on Facebook. So my Gmail is Maren C. Carroll, MarenCCARROLL @gmail.com.
Then I mentioned the womeninat@gmail.com, so you can reach out, and I think that goes right to Megan, but then it's easy for her to disseminate from there. So womeninat@gmail.com. Of course, I'm on pretty much all the social medias with Mr. Jeremy Jackson or Sports Medicine Broadcast, but definitely reach out to them, a woman in athletic training, or a man who wants to get better at advocating for women. Obviously, 9,000 members, they're doing something right. Reach out, say, hey, what can I do? How can I help? How can I have the same conversation that, we had today on the podcast with my staff or something like that? So reach out, email womeninat@gmail.com, or one of the other ways that they mentioned here. So one of the partners that I have is Frio Hydration. They provide us with some hydration stuff, and one of the really cool things that I like is the hands-free units. We just got 4 more of them, so we're looking forward to all the sports seasons where they don't have to put their hands on the watering units anymore. So check out Frio Hydration if you're interested in any of the hydration needs that you have for your outdoor teams. This is sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/womeninat2. Again, sportsmedicinebroadcast.com/womeninat2. So the number 2, not TWO. So for Jeremy, Megan Smith, Chelsea Lowe, Maren Carroll, and the Sports Medicine Broadcast, Women in Athletic Training, that is a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.